So I was raised on reserve my whole life, but I attended out of the reserve a French Catholic school system, which made me like I had trouble kind of creating or finding my identity through living on reserve and then attending school out of reserve. Um, so throughout my life, I had trouble kind of figuring out or trying to identify where I belong and what I should be doing. So attending French Catholic school board, there was no Indigenous representation, so I didn't feel like I had an Indigenous identity at school. And then when I got home, it was all about my Indigenous culture. Being on reserve, like you were just surrounded by relatives and family and just your community that cherished Indigenous culture. So yeah, I always had kind of a fight where I didn't feel like I belonged in either of the two situations in the Western world where I was too Indigenous, or if I looked at my Indigenous community where I felt like I was too Western. So identity-wise, I always felt like I was a bit of an alien, and it was hard to try to figure out how to live within both worlds. So with no representation within my school, or um, me and my mom had decided maybe when I was in like grade 4 to start implicating or start like introducing the Indigenous culture into my school. And we started to do like mini presentations, or we talk about different teachings, we do different workshops, just to try to bring some Indigenous identity. And mind you, the community where I lived in was maybe 8 minutes from my school. So it was now that I look back into it, it's kind of a bit hard to like think about that there was like zero cultural inclusion when I was growing up. And luckily, my mom was able, because she was also French speaking, she was able to come in and kind of help bring in that knowledge within the schools. And so that helped the relationship between school and at home. I started to kind of feel a bit more like included, or a bit more like I felt like I had a place. We used to go in and do presentations and stuff. It was always well received. We always had trouble though. We'd get to a point where it became more of a show and less of a um, traditional knowledge being shared. So we always had trouble kind of finding the balance between what is right and what is wrong to be shared, and even just the environment. If we felt like if it wasn't an inclusive environment, we'd maybe just change up last minute our game plan, I guess, for the presentation or for. But for most of all, it was well received. So for a long time, I would separate my school, um, that whole French Catholic system, and my at-home life. I separate them completely, and I found that's where it get exhausting for me, because it was like if I was living two lives, that it just got too hard at one point. And that's when kind of something had clicked, and I realized that they don't have to be two different worlds, and that bringing a little bit of both and like kind of mixing them into your everyday, and then making sure that you have representation. That was the one thing for me that I felt that I needed to see. Although there were other Indigenous kids at my school, for my community, I just felt like we were like the aliens walking around. So I just needed to see, like, metaphorically, I needed to see a spaceship somewhere. I needed to see something going on to show that we had a place and that we weren't just being assimilated. But I really felt it came with like self knowledge and self growth, and really like reconnecting to your culture. I felt like that was the biggest thing that helped me go through school, that helped me go through work, and like incorporating culture as much as I could within those two worlds. I felt like that's what helped me kind of find that identity and like kind of be more confident in my everyday and not feeling as weird. Or even if you're weird, I realized that it's better to be weird. um, so even within like school projects, um, if it's open topic, I started just to include either traditional, like the language, or I bring in traditional knowledge and traditional teachings into my every day, and then that opens up the conversation. Teacher or even like a peer will be like, well, why, what does that mean, like why did you say that, or what does that mean? And so I felt that it really became a thing where I had to bring it in, and you have to be like strong enough, and you have to find people to help you bring it in, because if you don't bring it in, if you don't include it, it might not ever get included, which comes back to the idea of language. Speaking language and trying to learn the language is how we're going to retain the language. Because Nipissing has like the language is really disappearing, and elders that are fluent in the language are passing on to the spirit world. So it becomes everyone's part to bring in that culture, bring in the language back. So it's not fun at times because you see everybody else, they're living their life and then not having to bring back all that knowledge and do all that work to bring it in. But it becomes essential, really, for if you want your grandkids and if you want your community to thrive, to bring it back and to include it. So at school, I still haven't learned about residential school within the school system. And I remember talking with my aunts and my family about my grandmother's experience, or even why my grandfather may have not went, or and just being like shocked and being like, why isn't this part of um, the curriculum, or why even my community isn't talking as much about it. Nowadays, you see a lot more representation and they're talking a bit more about it, but I find that when I was young, I just was like alienated from the whole idea of residential schools. And now that I'm older, I'm realizing that it's a really big part of my own trauma and my own experience. I remember in maybe grade 11, I did a project about residential schools, and it was a quick, it was an open subject type project, and I decided to talk about it. And I think it was about then where I started questioning to my mom and dad different things, like did my grandma go, or what was her experience? And it was always that she wouldn't share too much. One of my aunts told me that the first time my grandmother wore shoes was when she went into residential school, where they took her moccasins. And I feel pretty proud that I'm able to go dance at powwows or to participate um, in ceremonies and different teachings, because it's not being taken away from me, that I'm able to um, participate with honor and just think of my grandmother's struggles. And I'm just pretty proud. I'm pretty proud of where we're at, but there's still a long ways to go. So my dad was never taught Ojibwe. He said in school, in grade school, he was taught Ojibwe, but he says that I never grasped. But both of my grandparents were fluent in Ojibwe, so they didn't teach. I guess my aunts and my uncles and my dad, to talk fluently like them. other than in their school setting where they'd have a class or two. But um, I feel pretty proud that nowadays I'm able to attend and just listen to um, Ojibwe or Anishinaabemowin, and that I'm able to learn it and that it's not being taken from me. But it's also hard to learn it too, though, because you're trying to incorporate it into modern day where you've got work, you've got school, and um, you've got your everyday life, but you're always trying to incorporate that Western and then go back to a more um, before colonization setting where Anishinaabe was spoken every day. So the odd time I'm gonna try to incorporate it within my everyday, but I still find it really hard to learn a third language, especially when it's not being spoken around you all the time. But then I'm also learning different traditions and different things like hunting and gathering. So my clan is the Martin clan, and I've learned through different clan teachings um, that I'm doing what my clan is supposed to be doing. So I started hunting when I was very young, and I think the first time my dad harvested a moose around me, I was maybe 10 years old, and by the age of like beginning teenage years, I had harvested my own moose, and I found that that has really helped me um, connect with my culture. But then it also relates entirely with my clan, which is the Martin clan, which are the harvesters of the community. And I feel really proud that I'm able to go out with my uncles and my cousins and to go out hunting with them. Um, Even if traditionally it maybe wasn't my role, I would. You see the Western ways where the woman was at home cooking, but I feel pretty proud that I'm able to go out and do my part in the hunt and eat traditional foods on the daily. We're big moose moose lovers, and um, I just feel pretty proud that I'm able to provide for my family and do it in the traditional ways of laying sema and just like thanking creation when I do harvest something. When it comes to like traditional dancing, they don't really have classes where they teach traditional dancing. You just look up to people older than you, and you just look up to your community how they're dancing while you start mimicking, and that's where you kind of sort of learn. And even through language is kind of the same thing. But last weekend I had my one of my younger cousins. She was doing fancy shawl for the first time, and my aunt had asked me to help her out to teach her a few moves. And when we got onto the dance arena at the powwow, she told me, well, what do I do? I was like, well, just feel the music. You spin if you want, and if you don't feel like you need to spin, you don't spin. But I just basically was telling her just to listen and to feel the music, and that's how you're gonna learn what to do. Your body is just gonna almost like if your ancestors are dancing inside of you, they're gonna bring you and they're gonna show you how. You just have to get out there. And so it's really cool. And over the years I've had the opportunity to just help um, cousins or just like kids younger than me, and just by kind of showing them what I've learned and from people older than me. uh, yeah. It's cute too. It's cute when they're dancing in the powwow arena and they'll ask questions as we're dancing. And, well, am I doing it right? I'm like, you're doing it right. Yeah, whatever you're doing it right because you're dancing. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to. You don't have to worry about if you're doing it right. As long as you're dancing and getting back to the culture, that's all you need. I started watching a series, and it was about like being living on the reserve and different like funny situations, like, and they go through like different adventures, and I could really relate. So I felt like once I started relating to different things and seeing people post about different things through scrolling through social media, I would really feel like Oh, okay, they get me. Like I do that. Um, it's not just me. Like I just felt like you really get that sense of community and identity, and really start when you feel like alone. I feel that's when you start kind of losing your way. I feel like by seeing social media or by seeing different influencers, activists, um, bring up different social injustices or just representing your community or representing, I guess, like your indigenous identity. It just really helps the day by day. Um, I always love seeing someone in regalia or in like just rocking like some earpiece or earrings or something. I'm just like, wow, that's nice. Like you never see that like 10 years ago. Like I always felt like the powwow was that was it. You'd have the powwow and but now people are wearing it on the daily and they're just like representing their like culture and I don't know, I just feel more happy about like the future and just seeing that people aren't afraid to show who they are and to express who they are. I just laugh because we're like big distances apart, but we're all like interrelated and we're all connected and we all use the same things. And even I have one of my cousin's partners is from like northern Labrador, and he was sharing some of his traditional language, and I just found it so crazy that um, some of his words were the exact same as over here. Obviously, he didn't speak Anishinaabe, he spoke Innu, but there was a few words um, that were like the exact same, and I was like, what are the odds that like I don't know how many like I don't know. It's the other side of Canada has the same words and has the same meanings, and it comes from a traditional language. I know a lot are based on colonization and what colonizers influenced on the language, but I just find it cool how we're all interconnected at the end of the day, and that we're all the same. We all have the same folks, and we all have the same little catchphrases that mean the same, and I just love what I see on TV or a TikTok or something, and they'll use something like what my dad would say to me or something like that I see my family or that I see myself through other people, and that I know at the end of the day, like they're just like us, and we're all just living and we're all just enjoying the journey.